Hey, you're hanging out in the Link Up Lounge. I'm Tiffany Mason.
And I'm Donna Ruppel. Around here, we believe success isn't just about what you know, it's about who you link up with. This is your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities.
Donna, it blows my mind that the two of us have over 30 years of combined networking experience.
I know. We've built businesses, expanded networks, and created unstoppable momentum, all through the power of strategic connections.
AKA networking. And now we're here to guide you to do the same, starting today.
So let's dive in, connect, and start making moves you didn't even know were possible. Welcome back to the Link Up Lounge. I'm Donna Ruppel, your Nocatee real estate expert, and I'm here with my co-host, Tiffany Mason of Virtually You, the boutique podcast management agency.
This is your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities. And today we're tackling a common networking mistake, leading with your title instead of your impact. I thought it was important for us to talk about this concept because I was recently listening to a podcast about thought leaders and how they grow their personal brand. And that's what they were talking about in how to grow your personal brand. And so, yes, we're talking about a personal brand in the sense of networking, but also like, how does that translate to networking? So obviously in your book and on your website, you're going to talk about all these grand things and give all these grand examples. But in networking, we need to kind of boil that down into the statement. And then if there is a door that opens for us to share maybe an example of how that actually played out in real life. Because a financial advisor or realtor doesn't start a conversation, but sharing how you help and the change you create, that makes people lean in.
Yes, your job title might be familiar, but that's the problem, right? It's forgettable. I'll tell you, when I introduce myself as a realtor, I see people instantly sort of dismiss me like, oh, she's a realtor. Like they're all the same, right?
Yeah.
But when you introduce yourself with a clear I help statement, you create intrigue. You give people something to ask about, something to connect to, and someone to remember.
Yeah, I love when people do say something more like an I help statement because it gives me, the person who's having the conversation with you, a question to ask in return. Like, okay, I was listening. Let me show that I'm interested. And so this episode is going to be all about moving past the label into implementation and transformation. Because when people understand how you solve problems, who you help, and what changes because of your work, they are far more likely to connect, remember, and refer you.
So let's talk about why job titles fall flat. Think about the last networking event you attended. How many people said something like, I'm in insurance, or I'm a realtor, or I do taxes? Those are answers that check a box, but it doesn't really give you like a context on how they like to differentiate themselves or who their ideal target market is, or what is even, like you said, a follow-up question.
I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm dying because I'm in insurance. That's like not even a yes, no question, right? Like you are just you're almost deadening the conversation before it even started. I'm in insurance. Like, what is the person supposed to say to that? Like, you gave them nothing. There's no meat on the bone there. And so you're basically asking them every time, Donna, you're like, I'm a realtor. You're asking them to glaze over, shut down, and walk away. It's not even like, do you know anybody selling a home after you say you're a realtor? It's just like dead on arrival.
I mean, it's like you're having a conversation with, let's say, I'm just envisioning like a CIA agent, you know, like some high, like producing Wall Street guy, and like somebody, I'm thinking like really cool jobs, right?
Yeah.
like a neurosurgeon, right? And then they come to you and they're like, what do you do? And you're like, I'm just a realtor. I mean, that is like
insurance.
Yeah, right? Like that is definitely I'm not that interesting, don't talk to me kind of statement. That's really how it is.
You know, sometimes we've talked about body language and being open and showing signs of listening, that kind of thing. And that is just like immediate, woo.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do you say to that?
Conversation out the door.
Yeah.
So generic titles always make people tune out. They think they already know what you do. But when you say something like, I help newly retired women create an income that feels safe and simple, you're telling a story. Now you're giving them a face to put with your work. There's no need to say you're a financial advisor. You're showing them the real value behind your title.
So, one of the best ways to move past your title, right, is to share a real example. Say something like, I recently worked with a client who was overwhelmed about her future. She didn't know how to turn her savings into income. We built a step by step plan, and now she says she sleeps better at night knowing exactly what she can spend. Obviously, that's for like a financial planner or an investment person or whatever. But,
Right.
think about a real world example of how you solved a problem, how you helped somebody, those I help statements.
Well, when we opened up the episode, I was saying transformation and implementation. And I think I've said in a previous episode, people are excited about the transformation, but they also need help with implementation. So, you as the realtor, yeah, they want to buy a house, but they want to get it at a great deal and they want it to be somewhat smooth and they want all those things. And so, your person is explaining how you can help them to implement certain things to get the transformation that they're looking for. So we're moving past, I think there was a quote unquote transformation era, and now we're in that application implementation. So, how are you helping people to get to that transformation that they're looking for? You've just got to illustrate the struggle, the solution, and the result, and then that sticks. It
Mhm.
invites people to also say, oh, I know someone just like that. When you can clearly explain what you do, it helps the person that's listening to you identify people they could potentially refer to you. It's like when I ask for crappy sounding audio. We've all been listening to a podcast and thought, wow, that audio sounds terrible. But the people in my networking group, when they hear that bad audio, they know exactly who to send them to because they understand what I do. Like, what is your approach, Donna? I know that you've shared before, like how you said you were a realtor, and then the guy replied, I know five of you. And you said, oh, I'm sure you do. Like, can we revisit that interaction and how easily it could have been to shut down the conversation, but instead you kind of revived it and ended up getting a client out of it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was somebody that I saw on a regular basis, actually at the dog park. And so I saw him at a semi regular basis. And he asked me a question about living in Nocatee, which I answered. And then he talked about potentially looking to purchase a home in Nocatee. And I said, well, I am a realtor. And he immediately shut me down. Oh, no, I don't need you. I have five other friends. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And then the next time I saw him, he asked me a question again. Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? I said, not at all. And he asked me a question about differentiating the neighborhoods within Nocatee. And it was an opportunity for me to share my expertise, right?
Hmm.
Because I knew like all these finite details about the various neighborhoods from living here. And so I shared, an answer to his question, kind of giving me the opportunity, like I said, to show my expertise. And after that conversation, I didn't say anything else because, last time I mentioned, he wasn't interested. So the next time I saw him, he asked me another question. I again shared my expertise. And after that, he said, I don't know why I'm not using you. Like, you clearly know what you're talking about. I should be using you as my agent. And I was like, okay. So, because I saw him frequently, it gave me the opportunity to not be pushy, but show my value. And by answering his questions with no obligation, I was able to really show my expertise to a point where he obviously realized it would be beneficial to him to use somebody who actually knows all the various neighborhoods and their little nuances within Nocatee. So that was an opportunity to, get a client, like you said. But had I just been like, nope, I'm a realtor and
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, how many times can I say that and lose people's interest? It's like lightning.
Well, I think you bring up something that I wasn't even expecting to talk about, but you bring up that you were able to build know, like, and trust. So you see him often, he knows you. Then, you open up the conversation, and by not being salesy, not being pushy, he was able to let his guard down, ask you a few fishing questions, like maybe his most burning question without um creating a debt too large, if I'm making sense with that. Like, he wasn't asking too much out of you, but it was
Mhm.
still maybe his burning question and he got an answer. And then he was able to go, okay, maybe you know what you're doing. I don't know why I'm not using you. Let's proceed. And I think that that's something else that's valuable out of talking about what you do instead of what your title is. It's kind of like how when somebody loses their job, they don't know who they are anymore, right? Like they lost their title. Like I'm no longer the, CFO of blah, blah, blah. Well, you still have that financial knowledge.
Right.
So, be prepared to speak to your skills, your abilities, things that you've done in the past and grow, know, like, and trust with people you're seeing on a regular basis. Or sometimes we do go to those things that we're just seeing a person one time, but in that one interaction, how can you leave a lasting impact?
And, we're talking about, I help statements. And sometimes you have an opportunity to really launch into that. Like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about this client I helped and, blah, 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 right? But other times you have an opportunity for like two sentences to come out of your mouth before you're going to
Mm.
lose interest, and that's where kind of a tagline that creates value comes in handy. So, when people ask, what do you do? I unlock dreams one key at a time, and then you can follow up with, I'm a realtor. And they're like, oh, okay. If I just came out and said I'm a realtor without that tagline, then they've already stopped listening to me by the time I get to the R in realtor.
It's so true. Well, I hope you do get through your whole I help statement first before they shut you down at realtor, because when we do that, you try to chock it full of all kinds of nuggets about your business, right? And hopefully that triggers a question in the person's mind that you are speaking to. So, if I say that I help to get rid of crappy audio, I'm lightening the mood and people are laughing. And either they ask me, like, how do you do that? How did you learn to do that? Or what's the worst sounding audio? Or you listen to podcasts? What podcasts are you interested in? It opens the door for a lot of conversation. So, we are going to ask you guys or encourage you guys to start practicing by writing down your I help statement. Who do you help? What do you help them with? And what changes for them afterwards, as in the people that you work with? Now, build a story around that. Keep it really short and relatable. Don't worry about it being perfect. You just want to worry about it being clear, because the last thing you want someone to do is walk away and be like, I don't know what they do, and move on to the next person. There is a link in the show notes for the power statement worksheet to help you craft your I help statement. We, first rolled it out to you guys in episode 2. So make sure to revisit that, download it, and start really crafting what that would sound like for you.
hmm And I think you can even have more than one. And as
Yes.
we hear in our networking group, people switch them up, change them up, but you can definitely have more than one. So, for instance, for me and being in real estate, it's obviously I, could come up with a bunch of different I help statements so that I can pull one out for the right kind of person. So, in other words, if it's a young family, I don't want to pull out how I helped some empty nesters find a downsize. That's not going to relate to them, but if I was talking to an empty nester, then that would. So having a couple, two or three I help statements, stories, I think can be really good because then you can pick the one that's most appropriate for your audience. The other thing I would say is make sure that when you're thinking an I help statement, it's a statement, not a story. And so you got to keep it real short, because if somebody wants to
Yes.
launch into some long story about this real estate transaction they went through, I am literally glazed over and looking around the room for somebody else to talk to. And you want to
It's
avoid that,
called It's called a statement for a reason. It's not
right?
a power story. It's a power statement. And if
Yes.
the door opens up for you to share the whole story, go crazy.
Right.
But, make sure they're interested maybe before you take them down that path.
Right. Like a statement, you throw it out there, fling it out there, see if it sticks. And then they have, like you said, the opportunity to do follow up questions, right? And if they start asking you more questions and they want more details of your statement, that's when you can kind of take it one step further and you can launch it into a story. But again, that's how you can tell if they're actually interested. But after you figure out your power statement or your I help statement, then take it one step further. Add this to your social media bio. Use it on your website. Say it in your videos. Share it in emails. Put it in your email signature block. The more you repeat it, the more it becomes how others talk about you too. So, Tiffany, when you're in a networking event or organization and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, what do you do?" Give us an example of like an I help statement that you use.
Well, mine is not formal because a formal I help statement doesn't feel natural to me. So my opening line or whatever is I take care of small business owners podcast B to Z. They do the recording. I clean it up, give them SEO rich show notes, get it published on a consistent basis, so they don't have to worry about it because sometimes a podcast can turn into a part-time job. And that's really, that's usually what I say to people. And that gets plenty of
Yeah.
plenty of response. I never
Yeah.
get like, oh.
No, because I think so many people don't understand. They like the idea. Like I'm one of them. I love the idea of having a podcast, but I know nothing about it other than you record stuff and talk about something. And you have to have
Yeah.
a theme to your podcast. That's like pretty much all I knew. And so thank God I'm friends with Tiffany Mason. It makes having a podcast wonderful. But when you say something like that, it immediately makes me go, oh, yeah, there is all that stuff in the background that has to get done. And oh, yeah, I don't want another part time job. And so
Mhm.
you've already, in that short I help statement, created so much value in what you're going to deliver that my mind is already going, wow, yeah, if I'm going to have a podcast, I'm going to have, Tiffany Mason, virtually you, be my producer because you just told me so much value.
Yeah, I'd say my biggest reply that I hear is, "Oh, my friend has a podcast." And so that gives me a great door to be like, "Oh, what's the podcast about?" And we talk about it. I'm like, "Do they ever tell you about like the process? Are they, it gives me, I'm kind of digging around to be like, hey, you
Yeah.
want to tell your friend about me?"
Yeah, right?
But
Yeah.
also, also finding out just what people's podcasts are about. I mean, there is a podcast about everything. What was I talking to somebody about the other day? Flipping pallets, I think. And I was like, wonder if there's a podcast for that. Sure enough. All you had to do was go into the search bar and type it up and there it shows up. So, it's been very interesting to learn about everybody's podcasts and the things that they're doing with their podcast. And then also the conversation leads to people oftentimes ask me like, oh, like Joe Rogan.
Oh, funny.
Okay, so that is a great conversation. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is like Joe Rogan. A lot of small businesses actually use their podcast to drive traffic to their business. It's an indirect ROI. And then that gives them all kinds of questions like, oh, well, how would that work in my business? I'm a blah, blah, blah. And then we talk about how would we implement that into there and what would the format look like and, really get the creative juices going. And that's one of my favorite things is when are in that dreaming process. I know you and I had a couple of dreaming conversations about what a podcast would look like for you. And that really lights me up because I'm like, oh, we could do this. Okay, wait, well, we could do this. Oh, wait, I have a thought interrupting another thought. Okay, what if we do this? Like I really love that brainstorming time where you kind of are formatting and seeing what the podcast is going to end up looking like.
Yeah, and it all stems from that I help statement or story
Mhm.
and giving somebody context, really deep, insightful context about what you do. Because
Yeah.
when you're an original business, I call it an original business, something like podcast producer or, life
Maybe
coach, people
unique.
will ask. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. Unique. People will ask, like, oh, like a life coach, like, what do you do? Like, and each life coach tends to have their own niche
Yes.
and you can ask follow up questions on that. But if somebody says, I'm a financial advisor, it's like, wah, wah, wah. What am I going
Crickets.
to
It
say?
gives you
Yeah.
nothing. I know.
Yeah.
There's no meat
So,
on the bone.
yeah. And if, honestly, like I'll pull out, I'm a realtor if I just want to end the conversation with somebody. Quite frankly, like I know that's going to be a conversation killer. So I don't want to start out with that in a networking organization, like at all, right? Because I know that's my conversation killer. Like, wah, wah,
Man, I don't have a conversation killer. Okay, that's going to be the next episode.
right?
How to shut down all networking efforts.
How to get out of a conversation. Just say you're a realtor. Trust me, they'll leave. No. I think that when you sit down and really look at who you help, what you do, and what gets, like you said, what gets your creative juices flowing, what gets you excited, what gets you jazzed about what you do, think about that because we all have that in our business, right? Like
Sure.
there's something that gets you really jazzed. And so think about what that is and put that into your I help statement because then when you portray that and share that with somebody else, they're going to see your excitement and your passion come through when you just talk about that.
Yeah, you just can't help it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
those are the things that should be in your statement.
Yeah. I agree. Your job title does not define you. Your skill set does, your impact does. People remember stories. It's real proof of what you have done that you say you can. Not like, I'd like to help 100 people, which is very vague and doesn't make you think of anyone. Instead, it's like, I love hearing from my clients that they have a more professional sound and they are getting audience engagement saying that they are noticing the better sound quality, making them feel like they have leveled up. I remember getting this backdrop behind me. It looks like it's in my brand colors and it looks like a microphone and it's got like an audio wave coming out of it. And I remember how much more professional it made me feel. It was an aesthetic that made me just like level up, right? It gave me a little bit more confidence. It doesn't define me, but it has an impact on my virtual discovery calls or my networking calls. It's the same idea. Let your results explain what you provide. Let your skill set and your results be the impact.
Yeah. So basically stop hiding behind the strict label of what you do and start speaking from the transformation that you provide, like unlocking dreams one key at a time.
Donna, who says that?
Hopefully everybody who knows me knows that's my tagline. Okay. But really, when you're talking about a realtor job or position or status, when I say, I want to help you unlock your dreams one key at a time, that's basically saying, I want to work with you to find your dream property and get that unlocked for you. And that's more of a statement about what I want to do for you that gets you jazzed, you excited about pursuing your dream of whatever the home is, And so it's easy when it's a tagline because it's super easy to remember.
Well, something you may not have thought of. When I hear unlocking dreams one key at a time, it makes me feel one key. It makes me feel like I'm giving individual attention or I'm focusing on each client. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's what that makes me think of. Unlocking dreams one key at a time. One, I'm going to give my all to you, and then I'm going to give my all to the next person. So
I
a
like
little
it.
impact that you may not have thought of, but that's what that makes me think of when I hear that.
Well, that's good because that's kind of how I feel. Like I'm
Yeah,
giving
no,
my
it is.
all to a client until
And you
that's
do.
solved. Yeah. So I like that
Yeah,
that
you
comes
do.
across in my little tagline there. Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
This
Okay.
week's networking mode on tip: replace your title with an I help statement the next time someone asks what you do. Then share a quick statement or story that brings it to life and shows your passion. Watch how it changes the conversation. Remember, you can find the Power Statement worksheet in the show notes and check out episode 2 where we go in depth into how to create your power statement. Networking mode on.
If you rework your power statement this week, tag us on Instagram at _linkup lounge. We would love to cheer you on. Let's keep building those powerful links together.
You've been hanging out in the Link Up Lounge, your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities.
Now it's your turn. Go make a powerful link today.
Networking mode on.